Welcome back to Worlds Without Warning, the official podcast of Etc. magazine. I'm Jon Negroni, chief editor of Etc., and this week we're returning to contemporary literary fiction with a story about grief, avoidance, and the impossibility of going back to who you used to be. Today's story is called Second Run, and it follows a 32-year-old who quits answering emails from her corporate job and starts working 40 hours a week at the Dollar Theater where she had her first job as a teenager. This is a story about productive numbness and how grief makes us do truly strange things. There are no content warnings beyond themes of death and mourning. After I read the story, I'll get into my author's notes where I dig a bit further into the themes, intention, and overall writing process. As always, you can find the written version of this story along with many others over at cetramagazine.com. And now, here is Second Run. Second Run. Written by Jon Negroni. Edited by Natalia Emmons. Read aloud by Jon Negroni. I was on my hands and knees under the seats in Theater 4, scraping up what I hoped was just gum, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. The movie was still playing, some loud superhero thing that had been out since July, now limping through October at the Starlight. I could hear the bass through the wall, a low animal thud. My knees hurt. I was 32 years old. I felt great. The gum wasn't gum. I tried not to think about what it actually was. I scraped it up anyway and dropped it into my trash bag, which already smelled like soda and artificial butter and old popcorn and maybe mildew. My back ached in a narrow, specific place between my shoulder blades, and I knew exactly what had caused it. Cleaning theaters for 8 hours. At my real job, I was tired all the time and never knew why. My phone buzzed again. I sat back on my heels and pulled it out. Devin. When are you coming home? The light from the screen made the theater feel darker around me. On screen, a man in a cape was crying over something. A planet, maybe? I'd seen this movie so many times that I knew exactly when the next explosion would happen. I typed back. Soon. Love you. I put the phone on silent and shoved it back into my pocket. Casey, you almost done in there? Jordan's voice came through the radio, clipped to my belt. We got the next show in 10. Yeah, I said. Almost done. Mike wants you on concession in the meantime. Copy that. I finished the row and dragged the trash bag toward the exit, the sticky carpet making that sucking sound with every step. My shoes were already ruined. My hands smelled like cleaner and grease. I'd been wearing the same Starlight polo for 3 days straight. I hadn't answered my boss's last 2 emails. I'd stopped opening Slack entirely. I felt better than I had in months. Outside the theater doors, the lobby was bright and a little sad. The claw machine was still blinking, even though nobody ever won anything from it. A group of teenagers was arguing about whether they were late. Miss Beckles was standing at the counter, waiting for her daily popcorn, her purse tucked under her arm the way she always held it. Hi, Casey, she said. Hi, I said, smiling. The usual? You know it. I scooped popcorn into the bag. The machine whirred and hissed. I poured too much butter on it because she liked it that way. You look tired, she said. Yeah, but I feel fine. She smiled at me, like she didn't believe me, which was fair. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. I did not look at it. 6 weeks earlier, Morgan's sister had called me while I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting about quarterly brand alignment. I let it go to voicemail because I didn't recognize the number. When I listened to it later in the office bathroom, her voice was shaking. Casey, it's Avery. It's Morgan's sister. Casey, I'm so sorry, but Morgan died this morning. I need you to call me back. I stared at myself in the mirror over the sink. I remember noticing that I had a zit on my chin. I thought I should pop that when I get home. Then I went back to my desk and finished the meeting. I took notes. I nodded. I sent a follow-up email. I flew out 2 days later for the funeral. Devin came with me, holding my hand the whole time, like I might float away. Everyone told me I was being so strong. I said thank you. I was supposed to go back to work a day later, but I took an extra day off. I'm fine, I told everyone. It was easier than saying anything else. At the Starlight, the popcorn bag was already greasy through when I handed it to Miss Beckles. Thank you, dear, she said. You work so hard. Someone has to, I said. Jordan was behind me, counting boxes of Milk Duds. Their hair was faded purple this week, the color of a bruise that was healing. You're going to miss the previews, Jordan said to Miss Beckles. Oh, I've seen them all, she said. Nothing surprises me anymore. I smiled at her, because I knew she was joking, but also not. When she walked away, Jordan leaned over the counter. Your phone keeps buzzing. I know. Is it important? Probably. You gonna answer it? Yeah, later. Jordan shrugged. Cool. We're out of Sour Patch Kids. Right on schedule. They went into the stockroom, and I was alone for a second, the lobby emptying as people went into their theaters. I took my phone out. Devin. I miss you. Devin. Are you still there? I typed. Yeah. Sorry, just busy. The 3 little dots appeared. Busy with what? I stared at the words. I could have said work, family, grief. All of those were technically true. I typed. I'll call you later, okay? They didn't answer right away. I put my phone away before they could. After the funeral, I went to the Starlight because I didn't know what else to do. I'd driven around town for hours and just kept going in circles. Past Morgan's parents' house, past the cemetery, past all the places I was supposed to go until I ended up in the strip mall on the edge of town, where the dollar theater had always been. The sign was faded now, a few letters burned out, but it was still there. I walked inside and it smelled the same as I remembered, butter and carpet and something old. Mike was behind the counter, a man I didn't recognize, but he looked like every theater manager I'd ever known. I told him I'd worked there before. He asked if I could start the next day. I said yes. I told myself it was temporary. I told Devin I was helping Morgan's family. I was, in a way. At the very least, they knew I was around. After my shift, I went across the street to McDonald's. The drive-thru line was too long, so I went inside and got a small fry and Oreo McFlurry. I sat in a booth by myself and dipped the fries into the ice cream. The place was full of teenagers and old people and nobody else. I scrolled through my texts. Devin's messages stacked up like something I was supposed to deal with later. I called her. When she answered, I could hear the TV on in the background, some cooking show she always half-watched while folding laundry. Are you eating? She asked me out of nowhere. I had McDonald's, I said. You hate McDonald's. You always say it makes you feel sick. I'm fine. Casey, she said, and I could hear her moving things around, probably lining up the pill bottles on the counter the way she did when she was nervous. I don't really care what you're eating. I just need to know you're taking care of yourself, even a little. We talked for a few minutes, but I thought about Morgan the whole time. Specifically, the last text she'd sent me, which was about a show we both liked. I never replied. My phone still said, delivered. When I was done eating, I threw my trash away and sat there for a minute, feeling heavy and slow. Then I drove back to the cheap Airbnb I'd been staying in, the one with the broken lamp and moldy bathroom. I lay on the bed in my clothes and watched reality TV until I fell asleep. Jordan caught me in the break room the next day, sitting at the folding table with my coffee going cold. Can I ask you something? They said. Sure. Why are you really here? I work here. Yeah, but why? I shrugged. I needed something to do. They stared at me for a few seconds. You're here 40 hours a week. I picked at the cardboard sleeve on my coffee cup. Don't worry about it. Jordan sighed. You know, my mom did something weird when she got divorced. She quit her job at Target because she got passed over for a promotion. Said it helped her in the long run. Did it? Maybe. Eventually she went back and got a raise. My dad wasn't too happy though. I looked up at them. What happened? They split. Oh. Jordan stood up. I'm just saying. Sometimes people do weird things. They left. I finished my cold coffee. Avery texted me that night. Parents want to know if you can come by this weekend. There's stuff Morgan left for you. I typed. I'm working both days. Can you get one day off? I'll try. I didn't. Devin called me on Sunday. I let it ring until it stopped, then texted, Sorry, phone died. I'll call you later. I didn't. The next week, Miss Beckles leaned over the counter while I was ringing her up. You seem like you're settling in, she said. I am? Sure. I mean, I've seen a lot of people come through here, she said. Most of them look like they're just passing through. You look comfortable. I didn't know what to say to that. Take care of yourself, she added gently. Comfort doesn't last forever. Avery showed up in the lobby one afternoon while I was mopping. Casey, she said. I froze. We've been calling you, she said. My mom is worried. I'm sorry, I said. I've been busy. With what? I gestured vaguely. Work? Work, she said. You're working at a movie theater. Just for now. Casey, my mom asks about you every day. I felt something tight in my chest. I'll come by this weekend. You said that last weekend. I know. Sorry. She looked at me and winced, then nodded. Fine. She left, which meant I could finally finish mopping. Devin called that night. I answered. Hey, she said. Where are you? At work? Doing what? Working? Casey, I don't know how to explain it, I said. Then try. I don't know how to go back. Back to what? I don't know. Devin was quiet. I'm booking a flight, she said. We need to talk. I didn't stop her. She showed up at the Starlight 2 days later. I saw her sitting in the lobby while I was restocking candy. She looked tired. I felt sick. Hi, I said. Hi. Why didn't you tell me you were working here? I needed something to do. I didn't think it mattered. Are you for real? It matters to me. I can tell. She waited for me to say more. I didn't. I can't keep waiting around, Devin said. I'm sorry. I know you are. But that's not enough. I didn't say anything else. She left. That night, I finally went to Morgan's parents' house. Avery let me in. The place smelled exactly like it did a decade ago, and I hadn't smelled anything like it since. Morgan's room was still the same, too. I sat on the floor and cried into my hands, loud and ugly, the way I only could if no one was around to hear it. In the bottom drawer of Morgan's desk, I found a stack of ticket stubs from the Starlight, rubber banded together, soft at the edges from being handled too much. I held them like they might dissolve in my hands. Monsters University, the Grand Budapest Hotel, Inside Llewyn Davis, Edge of Tomorrow. All from 2013 and 2014, all from late shows, the ones we used to sneak into after closing. I could see us again in the back row, our feet up on the seats. Morgan whispering jokes about the dialogue and me trying not to laugh too loud, both of us pretending that if we stayed in the dark long enough, nothing else would be waiting for us when the lights came back on. We should do this every day, like forever, she'd said. I'm not going to jail, I said. They'll catch us eventually. Fine, she said. We'll just work here. watch the movies for free. Right. And I'm guessing we'd sneak food in so we don't waste money on concessions. Exactly. I laughed. But if you quit after 1 week, I am not sticking around so you can leech off my perks. She held up a pinky. Deal. All or nothing. A few days later, I stood outside the Starlight, my freshly washed uniform folded under my arm. Jordan came out for a cigarette. Hey, you working today? They asked. I don't know, I said. Yeah, well, that's not how schedules work. Right. Jordan went back inside. I stood there, looking at the building. I wondered how much longer it would be around. That was Second Run. Author's notes. I have this recurring dream where I move back to my hometown and start working at the local dollar theater, which, yes, was my first job, though I worked there from 2007 to 2011, to be clear. It's a weird dream since, well, for starters, that theater does not exist anymore. It shut down years ago. The other weird thing is that I have no interest in ever moving back to my hometown or working at a place like that ever again. So why dream about it? That was the central question behind me writing this story. It's sort of me investigating what it would take to make me go there. And the story honestly got away from me after a while. The original version of it was almost 4,000 words. For context, this is about half that. And it absolutely did not need to be that long. To that end, I structured this one a bit differently compared to a lot of my other work, particularly in this literary space. I don't usually do back and forth timelines where we're doing flashbacks and things like that. It's very common for other writers, of course. The strategy of using a flashback in the second scene to contextualize the first one, classic. It's not my usual style for short stories, though. I worry sometimes they can be a little confusing depending on how they're handled. Plus, I worry about using so much time on backstories. I want to keep the story as short as possible. Regardless, I am happy with how this particular story turned out. I'm really happy with it. I think the metaphor is probably painfully obvious, where we have this dollar theater and it's literally showing second runs of movies past their prime, and that's mirroring Casey's second run of youth in her 30s, yada yada. But that's honestly why I wanted to make sure that there's still this element of her teenage connection with Morgan and how that complicates the metaphor by having her attempt to recreate something that's already gone. That's actually why I start the story with the detail that Casey is cleaning up messes under the seats. It's showing how she's literally dealing with other people's residue while trying to avoid her own emotional debris. Now, if I haven't said it enough by now in these author's notes, having a minor in psychology has helped my writing tremendously. In this case, I was able to use a lot of what I know about avoidance as a framing for how people handle and deal with their grief. Because often grief, as I mentioned at the beginning, is a sort of productive numbness. So as you read this, Casey she doesn't collapse in this story in any kind of very dramatic way, not until the very end. She's working 40 hours a week. She's polite to the customers. By the way, Miss Beckles is based on a real person. And she texts Devin, I love you, remembers to call her, although she's not on time. And, we can see, though, under the surface that it's all a facade. This is why we eventually get to these abrupt segment breaks ending with I didn't, right? It's a rhythm of abdication that pushes Casey and the story itself to a breaking point. I chose movies from 2013 and 2014 because that was around the time I left my hometown to live across the country. It felt more fitting than picking movies from, say, 2010 or 2011 when, again, I was working in a theater. And the reason is because 2014 marks the moment of me becoming a totally new person. And in this story, we indeed see Casey is mourning Morgan. She's grieving her friend, but she's also mourning the person she was with Morgan. Before the corporate job and the inexplicable tiredness, the theater represents a time when she and Morgan were pretending to be in the dark, and it's just not working anymore because the lights already came on a long time ago and there's no real way to go back. To me, one of the hardest parts about loss is not just that someone died, but that you have to keep being yourself without them. And I hope this story captures some of that feeling in its own way. You can find Second Run at ceteramagazine.com, where you can subscribe for free to receive new stories every week. This story represents the kind of emotionally precise literary fiction we are committed to publishing. Stories that sit with uncomfortable feelings without rushing to resolve them. If you have a story like that, we'd love to read it and maybe even publish it. You can learn more about our submission guidelines and how to support Cetera by checking out our website. Thanks as always for listening to Worlds Without Warning. Until next time, remember that sometimes the places we return to aren't trying to give us answers. They're just holding space for us to finally ask the right questions. Take care of yourselves and be gentle with the parts of you that are still pretending the lights haven't come back on.